Dopamine is a molecule we make in our brain. It's a neurotransmitter and it's essential for the experience of pleasure, reward, and motivation. Habits or activities that are reinforcing or pleasurable release dopamine in the brain's reward pathway. It is a very specific neural circuit. The more dopamine that's released, the more potentially addictive the substance or behavior is. Pleasure and pain are part of the same coin, so to speak, located in the brain. This means the same part of the brain that processes pleasure also processes pain, and they work like opposite sides of a balance. When we experience pleasure, we get a little release of dopamine in this reward pathway, and the balance tips to the side of pleasure. And when we experience something painful, it tips to the side of pain or the discomfort pathway. However, the brain wants to stay in balance or homeostasis. It doesn't want to be deviated for very long to one side or the other. So our brains will work very hard to restore a level of balance after any deviation from this neutrality. The bottom line is that the way that the brain restores homeostasis is first by tilting an equal and opposite amount of whatever the initial stimulus was. This is how addictions happen, or cravings, or how you build good or bad habits. So, for example, if you look at your phone first thing in the morning, you get a massive release of dopamine because it's very stimulating and exciting, and also you've got loads of colors and music and sounds and whatnot, right? So, in the reward pathway, the balance tilts to the side of pleasure. However, as soon as that has happened, the brain adapts to that increased dopamine by downregulating its own dopamine production and transmission of dopamine. A very popular way to explain this is to imagine that these little neuroadaptation gremlins hopping on the pain side of the balance to bring it to level again. But the gremlins like it on the balance also. So unfortunately, they don't get off right away at the level or position that they're on. They stay on until they've tilted an equal and opposite amount to the side of pain, right? That's when the moment of wanting to scroll more or have more chocolate or whatever that addictive behavior is that boosts your dopamine. The thing here is to exercise some discipline and not succumb to our overabundance in convenience. Wait until the gremlins hop off the pain pathway and settle back into neutrality. But because most people can't really withstand pain or discomfort for more than 2 seconds, they gravitate back to the dopamine releasing habit. And then this cycle continues. Each time the pain increases when the neurogremlins try to restore balance, because they hop on the pain pathway and push on that side as hard as you pushed on the dopamine releasing side. A positive way to take control of your dopamine production and these neurogremlins is through heat and cold exposure, which as a practice also builds discipline and mental strength to withstand pain and discomfort. So exposing ourselves intentionally to moderate toxic or painful stimuli does the body a world of good, because the body senses injury and then starts to upregulate its own production of feel-good neurotransmitters and hormones. So instead of ingesting them from outside, we make our own. So ice or cold exposure is a great way to do this, because dopamine levels in the brain increase gradually over the course of that exposure, but most importantly, dopamine levels remain elevated for hours afterwards before going back down to baseline. This is a way to take advantage of the balancing act that the brain does. It's like paying for our dopamine up front by doing something painful first, instead of getting our dopamine externally, then paying for it internally with pain. Other ways of taking advantage is, of course, by exercising optimally, especially with strength training, because you tap into a very specific stimulus with strength training. Fasting and any kind of mind-body work like meditation are also good tactics. Something to be mindful of is that phones and app creators manipulate this pathway in our brain. So trying to get us to check our phone 100 times a day, first thing in the morning, and it's literally frying your dopamine receptors. The best productivity hack is to switch your phone off or remove it from your workspace and sleep space.